Joining me, Susana. So with Susana Bluwol, hopefully I said that right, is a foundation director of BiPolar Australia and currently serves as the chair of operations and on advisory committees. Miss Bluwol is an educator, speaker, and peer leader who has presented at national and international conferences and appeared on SBS radio and television. She founded BiPolar Australia in 2014 and continues to use her lived experience of bipolar disorder to guide the organisation's work. As an immigrant from Argentina, Miss Bluwol has a special interest in incorporating insights from the multi-family therapeutic community model, which was originally developed in Buenos Aires during the 1960s into the Australia Practice for Bipolar. So I grabbed that from the website, Susana. It's probably the longest introduction I've given everyone. But thank you for doing this. And anyone who listens to my podcast consistently knows about my mum's story and that she had bipolar disorder 1 and all the struggles that come with that. But I thought, I've been mentioning this report that you guys submitted, I think it was to the Victorian Mental Health Commission a bit. Yes. But just first off, I want to start is why did you start BiPolar Australia?
Thank you for giving me this opportunity, Joel. I started BiPolar Australia after many, many years that I personally was diagnosed having bipolar disorder type 1. And that was after I had some symptoms when I was studying. I was sent to the United States from Argentina as a scholarship student. And unfortunately, my 4-year study was cut short to 4 months due to something I didn't know what it was. But I became ill and mentally ill, and I became psychotic. Unfortunately, in the United States at that stage, they thought that anyone that became psychotic had schizophrenia. And that was in the 1980s. There are some papers now written about that because when they compared notes with the UK and Canada, they have 3 times the amount of people with schizophrenia. So they realized something was going wrong. But I fell into that category. So my mother, very desperate, she said, I'll come back home. We'll see how we could help you. It was a very sad year ahead in bed with lots of medications. I'm talking in the 1980s, there were not many advances about medication and treatment. And I put 25 kilos. I was 21 and I hated myself. So, of course, I became a zombie and my parents, I was taking so many medications that my parents thought, but we left a happy student going to study and look at what she's now. And they couldn't understand. So they took me to who was back then, my pediatrician, and he couldn't believe the amount of medication I was taking. The medication was given to me as a Band-Aid. Just to give you an example, I went to the doctor and I said, look, doctor, I can't stop my mouth from moving. Oh, don't worry, I'll give you something for Parkinson and that will stop. So that was the kind of treatment I was getting during all that year. And finally, with his help and my own perseverance of getting well, I took things in my hands and I thought, okay, I need to lose this weight. So I went to a proper dietitian. I exercised day and night. I ate well, etc. And over the 3 months that I was losing weight and I was very energetic, it was gone. Everything that I had, I didn't know what name to put then, and it was gone. To the point that I met, who is still my husband today after 38 years. I told him all the story, but he was not worried about it. Then we migrated to Australia. I had 2 beautiful children. And I worked in the field that I adored, which is early childhood, and established 2 long-day care centers for 2 different councils. And especially with the multicultural flavor, I really enjoyed working with all the multicultural staff, people, parents, etc. Until one day, I thought that I had the flu, but unfortunately it was not the flu. I call work and say, please get another teacher. I can't make it today. I've got the flu. Well, that was my last day of work. And what I presented with was curled at the bottom of our stairs at home. And when my husband came from taking the children, I was completely catatonic. I was not answering to any stimuli. It was just not talking, not moving, not wanting to do anything. So, of course, my husband took me to the doctor and from there to a clinic where I stayed for 9 months. They did absolutely everything they could, and thanks to a very, very persistent doctor that never gave away, never give up, I'm where I am now, because I thought that I was just one line very close to death. The pain was unbearable, and I received all sorts of treatment, because with the first 2 medications, they didn't work, and that was the worst time. And then they decided to start ECT, which started to work, and that really saved my life. May not be for everybody, but
And we're back. Sorry about dropping out. So I'm going to piece this together. But yeah, we're just talking about stigma then, and about you saying the academic. The question was around the academic stuff being all there, but it's about the self-stigma and the society staying the same.
Yeah, well, that's right, because the self-stigma and the social stigma that still exists is stopping people from reaching out for help. They don't want to be what they call labeled. That was a trend at some stage, right? That I'm not a label and I don't have bipolar. That even added to the stigma, because, and what I kept saying to people was, look, the way we talk about bipolar is not a label, because bipolar is a bunch of symptoms that someone might be showing that the psychiatrist, the psychologist, the person that cares for you, your colleagues, they all need to know and speak the same language to help you. You can call it to your friends the yellow tulips if you want. That would be a lovely label. But will that tell the doctor and the psychologist and your carer what you have? And unfortunately, that trend made Bipolar Australia not fashionable. And I have had people of influence in our mental health departments, statewide and nationwide, that they refuse to the word bipolar. They don't think they exist. They explain to people publicly that bipolar really only happens to people that they were traumatized when they were children, and that's what all the symptoms appear. That medication will not do much. So not only that the condition itself is not well understood, is that there are a lot of people around it. They have their own ideas. They have, of course, and everyone is free to have any idea and concept of the condition. But to influence others with their own opinion, when some people, when they heard on TV this person talking for an hour on SBS or ABC, one or the other, the people from the group, 5 minutes later, they were on the phone with me. Susana, have you heard what she said? Should I stop taking my medications? And I said, look, taking medications is still your choice, but don't do it now. Go and talk to your doctor. ask the same question like you asked me, because I cannot tell you, and then you make your own decision. But I was angry, very angry with that, because it was I can't say wrong, because she believes in it, but it was affecting people that they were doing really well with the plan and with whatever they were doing. And of course, who doesn't want to stop taking medications? No one loves it. But the way I see it, for instance, is that at the very beginning, 25 years ago, and I'm still taking the same medication, obviously something in my brain needs some work, right? Connection. And at the beginning, I was going, here we are, with the every week little boxes. And I used to call it that my favorite sport, which was putting all the pills in a weekly,
Yep.
little boxes.
Mm-hmm.
And it was funny, when my children were 8, 9, and 10, they were fighting for doing so. When they became teenagers, there was no way they would do that for me. So, but every time I complained, my husband one day said to me, Susana, I hear you complaining and this and that about your medications, and I can understand. But on the other hand, imagine if they didn't exist to start with, or you couldn't afford them. And then how would you feel then? And then I thought, oh my gosh, we're celebrating World Bipolar Day on the birthday of Vincent van Gogh. I wonder how he actually put up with a condition. He couldn't more than 30 years plus, because the pain is so enormous that he just didn't have anything to the pain and the depression and all that, make it better only just taking the absenteeism, which is a liqueur that is very high in alcohol. That was the only way that he can cope with it. So I have tried to explain to all those people that have different ideas, and they think that they can be very publicly, defending a trend and alternative treatments, which I'm open to everything that is going to make a person feel well. Music therapy, painting, exercising, anything, because every person is different, is unique. The brain is unique. All the story that you will talk with your psychologist is unique. The environment where you live is unique, and the environment you make yourself is unique. Because there is one ingredient that we haven't been talking too much either, which is the self-maintenance of the condition. It's not all about others. It's also about yourself. And there is a psychologist here in Australia, and the name of Greg Murray, that works together with another psychologist in Canada. And they work with people with bipolar, proving instantly, like if they come up with some idea, they will put it in place and try it directly with the people, right? And they came up with 7 steps of the self-maintenance. I was lucky. I mean, maybe I had common sense, because when I heard him talking about all the steps, I just went like, oh yeah, tick that, tick that, tick that. So I was happy that I did that. But some people may not realize, and then that's what we're here for, to support them and say, well, have you thought of that? Or maybe read this, or, anything that can help. We are not a unified body in terms of the support we get from the community. And I've been begging the community to say, hello, we are more than 500,000 people here in Australia that are affected. I mean, affected, we could say more than 1 million, because with the condition is more than 500,000. And that we know, because many people won't tell you due to the stigma. So it's a high, going really up the hill to trying to help the people that sometimes they don't want to be helped.
That's right. They don't. Yeah, well, my mum didn't want to be helped, and that was a lot of a problem. Single mum with bipolar who didn't want to be helped. It put us at a lot of issues. And you're right when you said it's 500,000 people in Australia out of a population of 26 million people who have it. But as you said, it affects 1 million or more, because those people have kids, they've got husbands, or they've got wives, and it affects a lot more people. But yet, I want to talk about the organisation stuff you mentioned. I thought that was quite interesting when you said. You mentioned about the organisation name when you got told bipolar and all that sort of stuff. But the organisation, I think, as you said, it gets lumped in with the mental health awareness movement. But for me, the mental health awareness movement, if you went to the general member of the public, they would just say depression and anxiety, and that's it. Yet they do that. These organisations, and I'll name them, Beyond Blue, you mentioned the Black Dog Institute who you're involved with, let's say Are You OK Day, and these things, which are just massive organisations with a lot of money going into marketing and all that sort of stuff. And it just seems to me like it doesn't need to go there anymore. It needs to go to these organisations like yourself, like Bipolar Australia, and I'm sure there's one for schizophrenia, let's say anorexia nervosa, and these sorts of things, which are being lumped under mental health, but they get no real
No,
direct
that's
support. And I don't think and people know that. Yet there's 500,000 people in Australia who have it. Yet they need to have these organisations, or how do you think it's going to change? Because I sort of think that Beyond Blue and that need to start taking, if you're going to claim to be the mental health champion or whatever you're going to do, you need to start allocating enough money to all these bipolar, schizophrenia, other issues. Or if you're not, governments need to start, or wherever the funding is going from, needs to start going towards organisations like yourself and others with schizophrenia, bipolar, and these sorts of things. Because for me, mental health awareness is being done to the hill. Everyone knows about mental health and mental illness, but people going beyond depression and anxiety, for me, is really important, and where we're going to make an impact. Because from your report, when I was reading it, it was just like, I sort of avoided learning about my mum's condition for a long time. But when I read this stat of, this is from the 2018, 2019, but the stat you guys put in here, which was 1,336 Australians with bipolar tragically died by suicide in 2018, which represented nearly 44% of all such fatalities. And that is never reported. We just get this thing. Yeah, we just get this thing, more men are likely to commit suicide, but there's nothing like, well, from what? So they've got bipolar or schizophrenia. Like,
we know
so
it
if we
all.
know that, yeah.
We know it all.
So what?
But I feel sad that those big organizations, I have been introducing myself and talking to the CEOs. I didn't have Black Dog Institute. I've been from many years, but Beyond Blue, Suicide Prevention Australia. And actually, I thought, I was very naive, because I went personally and I talked to the new CEO, and I went with this booklet, because I believe that if the person is helped by the people they're caring for them, it could be saving lives. I'm very
absolutely, and that
for it,
yes, 100%.
right?
Like
I'm
I'll give you. I'm sorry to interrupt
that,
you, Susanna, but yeah, you're right. You're right, 100%. Because I know for a fact with my mum, single mum, us kids were her life, right? And she used to frequently say to us, "I wouldn't be here if I wasn't for your kids." So
there you are.
we're directly involved in this, yet we got no consideration, no funding. It was almost better if our mother was a drug addict. We would have got more support from the government, because people can understand that. But sorry, you keep going, but I just wanted to interject there with exactly relate to what you're saying.
Yeah. Well, unfortunately, when I talked to them, for instance, the suicide prevention, I met the CEO before, and I knew that she was open to talk about the different reasons why people suicide, right? But when I met the new person, I explained to her that because bipolar is being researched and proved, etc., is the mental health condition that unfortunately has the highest level of suicide, because the depression
Yep.
is such a major depression that people cannot tolerate the pain, and they feel freedom when they decide to jump, right? Or to suicide, sorry. But what she said is, are you sure, Susana? Because now they're saying that it's not mental health altogether, dismissing absolutely everything I was telling her. And not only that, I took my booklet with me and I said, look, I just brought for you to have a look. You know what she said at the end, when she said, oh, and take your booklet. I know that they cost a lot of money to produce. I don't think that we can help you in any way.
But they're happy to take all this money. Yeah.
If that is not dismissing, what could be? And it's still the same philosophy. Is this, and like about a year before, they got $5 million to go around the country and ask the country why people suicide. And I said, are they kidding me? 25 years ago, I can play the CD. I was involved in the suicide prevention, begging people to do something, etc., etc. That was 25 years ago. And are you still studying that instead of putting that money to do something for a project or a plan that will save life? Now, I know they exist. Because for 3 years, for instance, the One Door Mental Health, it was a all schizophrenia fellowship, but in a way, to continue to be funded, they couldn't be schizophrenia fellowship. They had to say that they covered everything, including everything.
Everything.
But that was only, to get money, right?
Yep.
Now, they developed a project that it was called Hospital to Home. And it was run by peer support workers that developed a rapport with someone that most likely wouldn't go to a home or to someone when they got discharged. So they got to know each other, they developed a rapport. And at the time of discharge, this person made sure that the discharged person had a roof, had meals, it was in Centrelink. So it was set in a way, it was settled and feeling more secure. And that was over 3 months. This particular project was implemented for 3 years. And there was not one person that participated in this project. We did not have one suicide. No one, nil. That tells you that the follow-up from discharging is a problem sometimes and many times.
Yeah.
It is to be said that the first 6 weeks are the mark sometimes to see if a person is going to really be well on the outside or not.
Yeah,
and that's
I
what
completely relate to you.
That's what the revolving door is. That if they are with the parents and they see something strange and the parent doesn't know what this person is doing, back to hospital. Instead of learning what to do, they can maybe keep the person at home, give the support they need, and only take the person to hospital if it's absolutely necessary. So that's why we developed this book with the help of, back then, John Fennelly. He was the commissioner at New South Wales Mental Health Commission. And he understood. He said, where were you, Susana, when my sister had bipolar and we didn't know what to do with her?
Yeah.
So he
I,
gave me
I
that.
yeah, I'm just really frustrated because I can hear it in your voice, and I feel this is why I do this podcast, even if it's very small, because no one's doing it. As we said, there's generic mental health stuff with blokes talking about generic depression or minor depression or anxiety, which is fine. But in regards to who is actually, let's say, choosing to end their life, 44% of all suicides in Australia are from people with bipolar. And it's just like you would not know that. People know suicide is an issue, and they just refer to just suicide in a general sense. But
Yeah.
let's get to the causes, right? Well, proportionality, schizophrenia and bipolar, proportionality at a higher risk and need more support, and that's where the funding should go. I just don't see how the logic of the public when they donate to the organisations like Beyond Blue and stuff, whereas organisations like yourself, I think you don't receive any funding at all.
No,
Whereas
not even funny. And
proportionate in Australia with the it's unbelievable to me, and this is why I do this thing because I
for
hopefully,
7 years, for
it's
seven
just for
years, I've
me
been.
is really frustrating. So, yeah,
It is, but probably I'm a very
yep, you go.
persistent and a passionate believer that one day this could be reverted. And I just came up with only last week with an idea because I was um, helping through grief a father of a 40-year-old man that also had
Yep.
bipolar and suicided 2 years ago. And he called me,
Mm.
and since then we've been in touch. And then I thought, well, he said, I don't want to do any project with anything to do with government or any of that because I had enough. That's what his words, right?
Mm.
And he said, but I would like to have, if I could, set up places where these people, when they're so unwell, can just drop in and they know that someone will be there to listen and if they could be referred at the time they need it.
Mm.
Not to have to wait for 2 weeks to see a psychiatrist or because it doesn't work. When you need to see someone, you need to see it then. If you're in
Straight away,
such a
absolutely.
big
Yep.
pain, right?
Mm.
So then, of course, he was through grieving and in a shock for a year. But then he realized, and who is helping me? Where could I talk to people that went through my experience um, to, to, to have each other's, to talk about what we went through and where
Mm.
we maybe went wrong on what we did, etc., etc. And I said, you know that is a very, very rich content, if you want to put it that way. No one else will have unless you are prepared to share with others. And he said, and I don't want to meet with someone that the son suicided because he had OCD or something else. No, I want to meet someone that the children went through bipolar and where went wrong. He just,
Mm.
So I thought, hang on a minute. We want to avoid suicide. These young people are not so young. Maybe what we should be setting is a project where we will empower the people that lost loved ones with bipolar to actually talk about what they went through with
Mm.
parents of young people, both together, because I do believe in open dialogue. And I think that open dialogue should start from home. It's not a subject. And I believe that could help people to start seeing, so I should be paying attention if this person says, I had enough of my life, or, tomorrow I'm going to go and jump somewhere. They should listen But what happens? Sometimes friends and parents, they think, they say that for calling for attention. And then things happen, and then they didn't know that they should really listen. But I cannot blame anyone, because it happened to me. It really happened to me with my own sister, where she was in Buenos Aires, and I knew that she was very distressed and ill, and she was talking about suicide, and she had 2 attempts. So I was preparing myself, and here my colleagues actually made me stay for 2 more days, because it was a special conference for the pre and post suicide organized by the Salvation Army. And I thought, yeah, I'm going to equip myself to go. I already talked to her over the telephone, but now I'm going to have all this, tools and skills and everything. Well, I got there, and she came to the airport to fetch me and all that. She was very anxious. And then we suggested to have lunch, the whole family together, and we went to fetch my nephew. And when everybody had some drink in the glasses, she actually asked for a toast. And we thought, wow, she's really doing well. That's what I thought. And we just asked for her health and being there. And she actually was fighting cancer. And she actually took her beanie and said, oh, look at what my hair. And I said, oh, don't worry, it's going to grow beautifully. I know that, because I've seen other people. And then the only sign that I can remember that I never pay attention was on the way out, she said to Mum, oh, did I give you a kiss goodbye, Mum? And Mum said, I think so, but give me another one just in case. Okay, that was the last time I saw my sister. And I even said to her, this trip is to be with you, do all the things that we haven't done over the years. When I come here visiting, never had time, like going to I never ever thought that she was looking so well. Like I was told after, that the family told me that she was trusted to go to the corner to fetch some milk and bread and all that, something that before they wouldn't do, because she was so suicidal. But she was looking fine. Yes, of course, because she liberated herself already. She had the plan. So she felt liberated. And then the next day, she just was not with us anymore. So I don't blame anyone for not seeing signs, not even the most complete training will tell you. But if it's more specific, if it's more, you see, what I was told was, you see, your sister waited for you to say goodbye, but she didn't want to wait for you to interfere with her idea, because she knew that you would talk to her and this and that, and that you knew like if someone would have told me that she was so happy, then I could have maybe paid more attention. But I just arrived, and she didn't want that for me to know, because she had her plan and didn't want to go. Nothing would change her mind. So it's not about telling people, well, you haven't paid attention, you didn't know what to do, blah, blah, blah. No. But I thought that people went through the very painful experience could help others. And as I said, my group taught me so much. I remember one day, this gentleman was sitting there, and he just gave us his name, but no one needs to talk if they don't ready to. So towards the end of the group, I asked him if he wanted to share something with us, or if we can help him in any way. And he said, "Well, you helped me more than even I expected, because I'm here to find out what happened with my son before he took his life."
Mm.
He said, I did not have not even the idea that he was mentally ill. His friends knew, but not me. And that was a cultural stigma.
Mm.
Coming from an Asian background is very, very difficult for them to comprehend what's going on.
Mm.
And that's what probably friends didn't want to alert. And we all learn from experience. And he was there because his only nephew, they were all only boys in the family, because they were from the generation that in China, you can only have one child.
Yep. Mm.
And that only boy was not with them anymore. And his nephew also had some symptoms, and he wanted to save him. So that's what my idea is based on.
Mm. It's very, very powerful stuff there. Thanks for sharing that. And I think a common thing people say a lot, Susanna, is when they do have a family member who decides to end their life, and they say the same thing. "Oh, I didn't see the signs in that," but you said them from their perspective. They're liberating themselves and they're content, and that's why they might seem completely normal, or even better than normal, because, as you said, they've decided in their mind they're going to liberate themselves. And I've never heard anyone tell that story or share it that way. And I think it's a way for people, if they have had that tragedy in their lives, to sort of, they always beat themselves up. I could have done more, or what could I have done, all that sort of thing. But like, sometimes you just can't do anything. If the person's decided that's what I'm going to do, I'm going to liberate myself, and they're happy with it, how can you know?
Yes, you can't. Even a psychologist that I was working with, she told us the story of that she blamed herself because one of the people that she was seeing regularly, who never paid for the visit on the spot, and that one particular day he wanted to pay on the spot, and told her that he paid all his debts and took the money from the bank, and this and that. The last thing she was considering was that the next day he was going to take his life.
Mm.
But all those were signs, because they want to leave everything in order. Some people are being training people from life insurance companies.
Mm.
Why? Because they get phone calls from the person that is considering taking their own lives, making sure that the wife will get the monies from the insurance, if the family is going to be okay, etc., etc. So that warning, we were teaching the people how to ask directly to that person if they were considering suicide, or if they had some ideations of suicidal ideations, because some of the workers, they couldn't even say the word, let alone asking someone else.
But they were almost like the first point of call, almost, weren't they? The first point of contact, and they could actually probably do something. I've never even heard of or thought about this, Susanna. So it's quite important that you're saying this, because I don't think many people would ever consider that a life insurance rep, or that someone on the claims area or whatever, would actually be the first person maybe hearing about this from someone.
Yeah, and they developed afterwards, because really, if the person is not maybe suiciding because they had enough of a secondary illness that is killing them or something like that, usually is not the person really wanting to die. They never really, they don't want to die. And if you save them, they will come to you and thank you, because it's the state of mind that are telling them, oh, you are hopeless, you're a burden to your family, you're a burden to the world, etc., etc. But I always put it to the people in a group and say, imagine if this is your depression talking to you. What are you going to do with it? You know, go like this a couple of times and see if you can challenge it. It's hard. It's very hard. I have my own attempt. So I understand. Very hard.
I wanted to mention to you as well is about I've been looking into this stuff because for me, as I said, the lack of funding or the lack of awareness that people have in general for mental health in regards to bipolar and schizophrenia for me is a concern and alarming, and it's a frustration just knowing how much money is getting pumped into this sector. But I do think it gets pumped in the wrong area. And what even makes it even more concerning is that let's say Greg Hunt, who's the federal minister for health, I don't know if you know it, but he done a story a while back saying that his mum actually had bipolar and was in and out of psych. Yeah, and I'm sort of thinking, why are you sharing this now? You've known about it for years. You could actually help people. You're actually in a place where you can make policy to help
because now
kids in who were like you or your mum or you know, with this condition. And yet I don't see how he's done anything to champion it. And
yeah. You know, when he said it, when I went to the Parliament House with all my things, and the ribbon that the group actually put together for now in 2015. And what it means is that the blue is the depression and the yellow is the mania. And all the little faces around, I mean, if you mix them, the green was always a mental color, the ribbon's color for mental health, but also it means hope. And you mix the two colors and you get the balanced color, but also you need your social support. That's why there are many little faces around for the support groups, because I fought for support groups since I benefited from one, right? And so we went, and I've got, there is on my Twitter, when the blow bubbles for bipolar, which is our signature, is because on World Bipolar Day, which is March the 30th, we celebrate Vincent van Gogh's birthday, right? And I thought, well, what do we have that we could celebrate on top of his birthday? And I think that what we could really, really be celebrating is that nowadays we can really recover from bipolar. And by recovery is a very personal and unique concept. For me, could have been going back home and cooking dinner for
Suzanne,
my family.
hopefully come back.
Because I'm the one freezing, or is you?
No, it's you. It's not me. It's all good. It's all good. No, you're right to go. Keep going. It's all good. You've come back. Yeah, it's all good.
Really?
Yeah, it's fine. It's fine. Keep going. Yeah, it's no problem.
If I open the door, maybe I get a little bit more. Do you want me to try?
Yeah, up to you. Yeah, it's fine. The audio is recording fine. It's just the it's just the video, but it's no problem.
What a shame. Hang on. I'll see what I got to do.
It's all right.
Unless I move the. Okay. Let's see. It didn't come back very well, but hopefully I can see you better now.
No, yeah, that's no problem. All good.
Okay. So we went on the day actually, and we blew bubbles with Greg Hunt, with Ken Wyatt, and many others. And on the day also, the parliament had all the ribbons if they wanted to actually start wearing it. So of course I know Greg Hunt, and I think that every time I had the chance when he was talking or something, I talked to him and I said, when is our turn? I kept saying to him. But I had 2 hours conversation with his personal assessor. I mean, not assessor, the, what do you call it? Hang on, I touched something, yeah. His senior assessor, right? And I thought it was going to be only a half an hour conversation. But I learned a lot about the life of ministers, because he was telling me that the ministers go to the community and they see the needs, right? And then they come back and they may put together a report, but that report goes to Treasury. And the people that actually make the decisions is Treasury.
Right.
So if Treasury got this idea that anxiety and depression is the trend, why would they give money to someone else? I find that a little bit hard to believe, in a sense that, well, a minister is a minister and he can push a bit further, especially having had a mother. And he knows.
That's what baffles me. That's what baffles me. And I'm trying to get him on my podcast to talk about it, because you're right. You're the minister, and you've had this exact situation, and you know how it's impacted you and your mother. Yet you're in a position to do something. Yet I don't, and then surely you've got a bit more sway to push something through or to do something. As you said, I love the line where you said, "When is it our turn?" When is it, exactly right? When is it the turn of people with bipolar and schizophrenia to get the attention and the support they need?
Actually,
I don't think
yeah. I tell you that the Schizophrenia Fellowship here in New South Wales was actually formed more than 35 years, I think, because the CEO that was there for most of the time, he just resigned a few years ago, he was called to go to the town hall, and there were many, many, many people there, and they were all carers of people with schizophrenia asking for help. And that's how Schizophrenia Fellowship started, with support groups for people all over New South Wales, and they still exist, to provide them with information and support them and making sure that they are well to look after the person, etc. I did not understand why the same thing didn't happen with bipolar. The carers for bipolar, I don't think that they ever got together in any kind of format to support the people. And I don't know if that is...
there's always, you're right. I've never heard of anything. I never heard of anything, but I think a lot of people were still, I don't know when this was done, but for me as a young carer, I was, you were embarrassed, and you wouldn't have probably even, I wouldn't have even taken any help, to be honest. So so that was the more the thing, and the person, and my mum would no.
No.
My mum wouldn't have wanted me to go there as well. Yeah, so I was going to say, my mum wouldn't have wanted me to go to some special group because of her bipolar. I can tell you that right now, and that would have been, I presume, similar for a lot of people. But that's an interesting point. I've never heard of any support groups or things like that is to the same level as what's happened for this carers with schizophrenia.
We do have in Australia carers New South Wales, etc. But every time I contacted them, and I said, would you be able to see or tell or ask all your community if within that you have people that may need help with bipolar? and they just never come back with anything.
See, that's
Either
unbelievable.
because,
That is so unbelievable. Yeah.
yeah.
Mm.
So this
Mm.
year is the very first time that, after I've been talking to Beyond Blue, for instance, about, look, what about you do not take people with bipolar in any way. What about if we have some projects together and we can help the people, right? So
Mm.
about 2 years ago, I heard, oh no, this is not the time for us to extend ideas or whatever,
Who
right?
said that? Beyond Blue.
Yeah,
Beyond Blue said that,
that
did
was
they?
CEO of
See,
Beyond Blue.
ridiculous.
And
Ridiculous. They got the biggest brand for mental health in Australia, and it's not the time for extend their ideas. Absolutely
no,
ridiculous.
no, but even worse, the next day I became depressed because I heard on the news
Mm.
that the government was very happy to give Beyond Blue $5 million to extend on the work. The very next
Yep.
day.
I'm
So,
sick of,
oh,
like, it really frustrates me, Susanna. It really frustrates me. I've got the same opinion
it
on
is
you, and a
frustrating.
lot of people, for whatever reason, they just, yeah.
Yeah, they listened to the news and they said, we are this year, the budget is going to be discussed pretty soon as well. And everyone is
Mm.
lobbying. I mean, I have that, I tried that. And we have the very first study is 93 pages that we presented to government to tell them not only that how to treat people, but they were going to save a lot of money of people being in hospitals, and they didn't
Yeah,
want
I
to
read
hear
that
it.
on the yeah, yeah, and I can't believe that
And you know
based on
that,
what I've read in the report. Yeah.
well, we were told not to ever tell the government that they're wasting money, that you can teach them how to save, never to tell
Mm.
that to the government, because how it's taken is that they're wasting the money, or that portion of money will be given to someone else if they don't need it.
Mm.
Okay, so
And
that's the
also it's
point.
yeah. Yeah, I hate how politics come in. As I said, like I don't have to say it again, but like the federal health minister has this exact situation affected him, and yet he can't even, or he's not willing to do anything. But the other thing that I've been finding frustrating, you'd know a lot more about this than me, is there's this mental health. The Australian government's got this mental health commission or something, and I've been looking into it a bit and stuff, and I've seen who they've appointed to the board, and there's marketing executives, and there's some other people like that who have got all this credentials or corporate credentials. But it's like, well, I know, and as we keep going on, I hope anyone who's listening to the end will know that's not. You don't need those sort of people. That's what are they actually going to do beyond what's being done already?
Marketing.
So, what are your thoughts about how the? Yeah, well, it frustrated me when I saw a marketing person put on there. I thought, and I actually commented and said, you need to start considering this. Oh, yes, we're going to consider all things, which they won't. But what are your thoughts about this? As you said, the politics or the posturing with these, they're setting up these organisations or these boards and these things for, like, let's say, oh yes, we are doing something, point to this commission, but we know, well, for a fact that nothing is coming downstream to actually help in any way. So, what are your thoughts about what the government should actually do at a federal level and a state level? What would actually help reduce the suicide rate or help people, let's say, get that suicide rate down? Because one thing people don't realise as well is that the suicide rate hasn't been really much affected. Yet we've got all this awareness and hotlines and whatever.
Hmm?
Yet from your
Yeah, but
report,
it's still the
44%,
same.
yeah, still the same, because no one's addressed the issue and actually looked at who is choosing to end their life, which is more majority,
Yeah.
let's say more than half, is bipolar and schizophrenia. So why not
Hmm?
actually allocate resources towards that? And this is the thing I just don't get. And I'm quite frustrated to hear about how Beyond Blue, the CEO, said that to you, because I think that's a disgrace, because they've, like it or not, they're the biggest brand for mental health in Australia. And if they're not taking bipolar and schizophrenia under their umbrella, you're not even doing half the job. And that's really frustrates me.
Well, I said to her, look, many of the phone calls I get are referred by you. and we are peanuts next to you. We can attend, and we would love to serve those people and to do something about to
Mm.
help. And the answer was completely something I did not expect. And it was, oh, are you telling me that you prefer not to refer people to you?
Mm. Unbelievable. Unbelievable. And what'd you say back? What was the response?
I just said, look, we're here to help people. What are you talking about?
Yeah, but you get no funding at all, yet they get all this funding and they're referring people onto you. And I
Mhm.
just think
That
how
is the
baffling.
most
And the annoying thing for me is, yeah,
hilarious
it's
thing.
it's so annoying because, as I said to you, like people, as I said, if they heard this stuff, what we're talking about now, they might change where they put their money towards an organisation like yours, or there's one in Victoria which I really like called Satellite Foundation, who works with young carers and kids with their parents with mental illness. But
Mm-hmm.
as I said, this organisation Beyond Blue, they might not listen to us, but like if we can have people who actually hear this and are passionate about and understand what we're saying, start donating money to organisations like yourself, which receive no
What is,
funding, yet do all this
yes.
great work and actually help in trying to reduce the suicide rate and help these people directly.
I just feel that it's not only one side um, uh, that you could say, well, it's their fault. Because,
Mm.
it's not really. If they get the money in a clean way, as they say they're going to deliver, and how they work is an outsourcing everything they do. Like if you have a service of with a telephone answering, they said, okay, that is going to cost $3 million. So these three
Mm-hmm.
million dollars will go to this company that is going to take it. They don't even have a psychiatrist in there.
Mm.
So that's the way, but I know exactly why they are receiving all those monies, because the person who set Beyond Blue was a very intelligent politician and lawyer that signed with the federal government and with the state government contracts that said that after each budget, a certain percentage of that budget will pay directly to Beyond Blue to
Mm.
continue sustainability. So it was an intelligent thing. They have a contract, they get the money. That's it. So I think that is
Mm.
more the first of all is the people that want and need the help. They need to get unified and say, we had enough, and
Mm.
have a petition to the I mean, we can do it from our representation state, but I believe that it's more the the people that truly need the support for themselves, for the children, for the husband, for the little neighbor,
Mm.
whoever. It's funny because every time I go anywhere to talk, there is one or two people coming to me and say, "Oh, my son has this. No, my colleague has bipolar, etc., etc." So it's always around somewhere. Someone will have the condition. Yet they never unify to say, "Okay, let's
Mm.
write a petition to the government, and let's be strong." I think that that's what we need, is to convince the people where we put our taxes to pay us back. It's
Mm.
not complaining about bigger organizations. Well, they knew how to set their organizations up, and they decided to just work only with anxiety and depression.
Yeah, but I think that gets to a stage though when you've become this go-to brand, and you're right. It's not their responsibility, but you sort of go, well, you got to reevaluate your brand and go, well, if we're the go-to brand and we're trying to say we are the mental health brand in Australia, which I think they are. If you've done a brand recognition thing and if you ask people a survey, who's the organisation or charity that does the most with this, it might be either Beyond Blue or Are You Okay? But it comes to a stage where you got to go, look, if we're going to say we're champion mental health, we've got to champion and put resources into the whole gamut of it. We can't just focus on these two, as you said, depression, or let's say general depression and anxiety. You've got to take responsibility as a brand and shift. If you're going to be the mental health champion, you've got to shift to everything. And that's the way I look at it, because you've done really well to set up your organization, as you said, and we shouldn't be angry at them. But what I'm frustrated is you've got your brand is now associated with this. You've got to take on the full gamut. And that's what's got to happen. Or people with their money, or the government with their money, needs to start looking, or we're only funding half the issue, or let's say 40%, whereas these other 60% we're not doing anything about.
Some philanthropists, some people, they maybe ought to be informed of the reality behind doors. And
yes.
And actually, what is being happening is that we started a way of listening to people with a lived experience, which it was always what everybody wanted. Just that why we are operating is because we know the suffering of people, we know what we want, etc. And then I invited Professor Philip Mitchell, who is an eminence in bipolar, and I met him at one of my support groups when I was attending. And he was so down to earth, and he was willing to talk to the people to their level, etc., that when I wanted to fund Bipolar Australia, the only person I had in mind, I said, Philip, I really would like you to be the chairperson, but also the person that will launch the organization, and he did. And but he's been there for 7 years as a chairperson and helped us enormously. But of course, people have their own lives, and he just resigned at the end of this month. So at the moment, I think that we have that open door to, because people always tell me, oh, you need a lawyer, which is true. Because you could get in, with all the legal things for an organization, you need a lawyer. Okay. And someone that knows about corporate marketing. So I know that you will look at me. That's the mistakes that organizations like ours made. And Philip was saying that at the beginning, the Black Dog Institute, there were a group of doctors that wanted to do the best of the best, and everything went wrong. They were not sustainable. They were not, until they got a guru for marketing. So I always compare Bipolar Australia with Bipolar UK because I didn't have anyone to contact, and I'm in very good relationship with them. And I always thought that we will get eventually, I mean, they are now 25 years operating, that we eventually will get the same support and we could help people. Well, it's so different. They have 88 support groups running in such a small, okay, they have more people, but 88, we don't even reach, I think, 30 if we did. And the government actually supports them. And they're having now the conference for World Bipolar Day. They invited me to talk about bipolar in Australia, right? So I was talking to a doctor and I said, why so different? He said, Susana, you can't compare. England is almost a socialist country. Here is the most capitalistic country that you could probably encounter. They learned it from the United States, and they always felt proud of it. Because when I arrived here, actually, I thought this country was very socialist. It was the time when everybody was going to have Medicare, and I came from a country that was a disaster at that time, not much better now. So it deteriorated. It just deteriorated, and if you don't have a an item to sell, that's how you get your name, your brand, everything. To the point that people even suggested, well, if the name of the organization is a problem, maybe you consider changing. There was a few years back where every organization changed the name. They lost so much money in just doing that. That money could have gone to the services of people, but I can tell you, One Door was a schizophrenia fellowship. Being was CAG, which was consumers activists. I look many. So I'm truly looking for this new era to see how can we get to truly give the support that the community needs. But I need the community not only to tell me the support they need, but also to support us, to support them.
That's fantastic, Susana. We've been going for an hour and a half. I said 45 minutes, but I reckon we could keep going for another 2 hours. What I would love to do, though, is love to have you back on again at some stage, or maybe sometime just to talk more. Because as I said, I could talk to you for all day, but because it's a podcast, I've got to try and keep it under an hour and a half.
Yeah, and I just want to invite you and the audience that on March 30th, if they would like to just start the conversation, blow some bubbles and have fun, have maybe a nice cake, be open about talking about the condition. Maybe you will feel freer about that. It's not being ashamed about.
Well, I'm going to put links to all. I'm going to put links to all your website, links to the social. I'll put everything in there, and moving forward, hopefully I can be able to promote you guys a lot more because having met you and know how much what you do is fantastic. And if people just know that stat, 44% of all fatalities from suicide is from people with bipolar. Like, it's just such an overwhelming stat to me. And when I learned it, I'm just like, I always live with bipolar with my mum, but I never knew that. And once I saw that, I was just like, this is something we need to really, whatever anyone can do who's hearing this or anything, just need, if you've got it related to it, just need to start pushing it. And you're right, you need people to support you, and I think that's the most important thing. So how can people support you, Susana? Is there something where they can donate to your website, or what can they do?
Yeah, if they would like to donate, my website is bipolaraustralia.org.au. There is a place that says how to support. Even if there is in, say, in kind of something like, we don't have an office, for instance. We cannot afford an office.
Yep.
We don't have a CEO. I mean, I'm the person. I wear about 7 hats, but I can only just balance them for about now the 7 years. And I did have very, very good helpers that here and there, but I even put sometimes family life behind Bipolar Australia. And I think that is a time now that the community takes a bit over. And if there is someone that has the experience on how to bring a whole company or an organization up, and they would like, say they're retired, but they want to keep working and they want to run the board, for instance, they're very welcome. So anyway, we are almost a startup. We have all the bases legally, and all the work that we've done always has shown that it's good quality. So many people thought, and I got many times, are you telling me that this is run by 3 people? And I said, yes, I'm telling you that. They couldn't believe it. So believe me, it's true. And we want to actually help all these people that are suffering in first place, and all the ones around that are suffering as much.
You do a fantastic job, and I can't believe it's 3 people compared to other things, and it's for such a big issue. It's amazing what you're doing. I'll share as much as I can, and hopefully moving forward, anyone listening can do it as well. I'll put all the links and all that sort of stuff, and hopefully we can have a chat again too in person, probably when I come up to Sydney. It'd be good to record something in person and share that
Oh, that would be
online.
lovely.
Awesome.
Where are you based?
I'm in Melbourne. I'm in Yarraville, Melbourne.
I would happily fly there. I like Melbourne.
Yeah, no, for sure. No, I'd definitely love to do this in person with the audio and with the video, and we can get a bit more high quality video. But what I'll do is leave it there today for Susana. Thank you for giving me so much of your time, and I'll put all the links and everything in there so people can check the show notes and hopefully get you some more traffic and hopefully some more funds. And yeah, let's hopefully your organisation can move onwards and upwards.
Thank you so much for this opportunity, and I think that I open up my heart really to tell people how much we want to help.